Greetings, viewers, and welcome to another edition of the Dinner Club Jamboree. Um, and I want to thank you for being here, Michael. And I apologize. I'm going to say this now for people who come after the live show because we don't have any audience members out there right now, this moment. But the reason it's just me and Michael on screen right now is because I totally forgot to send out the invitations to the show to my other members. Until about 25 minutes ago. So we'll probably have other hosts sliding into the room here to come on camera. But for the moment, it's just Michael and myself. Agent of Doubt is Michael, just in case you didn't
Yeah.
know that. Hi, Mike. How's it going?
Hey, today I have a halo.
You do have a halo. That's heavenly.
Yeah.
And is that a light or a skylight?
It is a daylight spectrum light. I have different lamps all over the room with different spectrums so that I can see my art in different wavelengths.
Are you shitting me? Is that really why you have it?
Yeah, that's why I have it.
That's pretty
Because
cool, man.
seriously, like art looks different in daylight than it does in, regular halogen bulbs.
I totally agree. And I made the mistake for a while of painting under fluorescent tubes,
Mhm.
and then you go outside and you see a completely different array of color compared to what you would thought it looked like. So yeah, nowadays I like painting outside for this opposite reason. So that way I know what it looks like in proper light. You know.
Yeah. Last week, somebody in the chat said that I looked like I was boiling over or something, and that was just the light that was on me.
Right.
Eh, I was feeling fine.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Have you been paying attention to the world as it has been over the past week since last week's show?
So nothing about Kanye and being racist and being shocking on Twitter. That I wouldn't pay attention to that at all. No,
No, you didn't see that.
no.
Yeah.
I did happen to see some TikTok videos of nuclear warheads being transported to Moscow, and I sent that to Joe and Raven. Uh, Basically, just looking at like what would Moscow be wanting to do with all that stuff, and then a lot of my ideas about how strong Russia is come from like the Cold War and from like U.S. propaganda movies where they were like the other superpower. They were just as strong as us. And I'm starting to realize that they're not even as strong as Texas. They're horribly weak, and
Strength is an illusion when it comes to military might anyway. We tend to think of ourselves as super strong because we have all these high-tech weapons that we can sprinkle around the world like fucking sprinkles on a cake if we want to, right? We do that sometimes, and when it comes to the actual boots on the ground fighting, it's always a lot harder to do that
yeah,
than it is in a movie, right? And I think people unfortunately have some mistaken expectation that thanks to the media, in my opinion, that you walk in, you kick some ass, you walk out. And it doesn't work like that. Hello, Galen. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
But yeah, it doesn't work like that. And as far as Russia's concerned, I mean, I don't understand, and I don't mean this in a smug way at all, but I don't understand how anybody can. I mean, they got chased out of Afghanistan,
yeah.
right? Just like we did, but it only took them half the amount of time to realize that it was pointless them being there. It took us 20 years. It took them 10.
Well, in seeing those videos of the movement of nuclear weapons
Yeah.
and the rockets and everything, I did further research on that, and I realized that Russia does not have the ability to reach the U.S. via rockets. Now they have nuclear subs that could, you know, rise up on our coastline and then maybe try to hit us with their rockets then.
I
But they
thought they
have
still had
nothing that
ICBMs.
they have no ICBMs that could actually hit us, or even some parts of Europe. Like they are surprisingly less powerful than I thought because of U.S. movies. So
Right.
I'm realizing that the strategic placement of the nuclear arsenal of Russia is actually their end game. Is that they know that they cannot answer the U.S. if the U.S. attack them with nukes. Their only game is it's like a scorpion stinging itself to death to poison the bird. Their only game is to blow themselves up. If they did that, the nuclear winter would then be traveling, the fallout would be traveling over to the US via air currents. And it would be very bad for the whole planet, but they don't have the ability to obliterate us like we have the ability to obliterate them. But they do have the ability to flip the checkerboard.
That's interesting to contemplate for a couple of reasons. I mean, I almost hate myself for saying this out loud, but like the doctrine of mutually assured destruction, right, is partly what's kept us from having more nuclear exchanges than we've had in the world already. I mean, we've only had the one in Japan, as far as I'm aware, back in World War II, right? In terms of using nuclear weapons on in a war scene. However, I think that there's been people itching to use smaller nuclear weapons on battlefield situations for quite some decades now, certainly since at least George W. Bush, maybe further back than that. And once they establish this whole, if they ever legitimize or normalize using battlefield nukes, then we're done. That's it. There, as far as I'm concerned, and this is me being programmed by Dr. Strangelove and a whole lifetime of growing up in the Cold War, right? But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, one goes off, they all go off. It almost doesn't matter. I mean, can you see any scenario? And Galen, I'd like to hear your answer to this question as well. Can you imagine any scenario where there could be a nuclear detonation where people would hold their breath and wait to see what happened before the shit started to fly?
My only reply is that anyone using nuclear weapons in any capacity, past, present, or future, is wrong. And anyone contemplating like the good fortune of doing so is insane and psychotic and wrong, unethical to the core, no matter how much exceptionalist, cultural, nationalistic bullshit that they want to program and put forth into some apologetics for it. It's just stupid. It's asinine. I mean, I just don't give a fuck. I don't know how I could even discuss it. It's just like, it's just stupid. Like you go down a slippery slope when talking about it. I mean, if you hear yourself, you're talking about, you go to this and doomsday this and doomsday that. It's like pinch yourself.
I mean, I prefaced the whole thing by saying, as far as I'm concerned, if one goes off, they all go off, right?
But the whole horror of it. I mean, what the U.S. did in Japan is horrific. I mean, no matter how much racist apologetics people want to put into it, it's still awful.
Yeah, I agree. Hello, Raven.
Hello. What did I walk into?
We were talking about nukes.
Yeah, Michael was mentioning that he saw some footage in Russia where they're parading nuclear weapons through Moscow. Was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and we're sort of opining on the sort of reasons for that beyond propaganda. Is there any reason for that beyond propaganda, for that matter?
Yes.
Elaborate.
Usage.
Yeah. And it lines up with my usage case that Putin might decide to flip the checkerboard. If he can't win, he can sure lose with a mighty bang, and just make life hell for everybody else in the process. and
Well,
then the legacy of Putin lives on.
The thing about the mutually assured destruction part is the destruction, right? I mean, I don't think there is such a thing as a limited nuclear conflict, and even if they tried one, it would fuck us all. So you know what I mean? I mean,
So in my scenario, he's moving the nuke to Moscow because he's gonna let it off in Moscow.
Huh?
In my scenario, he's moving the nuke to Moscow, but because he's going to let it off in Moscow, and he's going to be straddling it.
Right. Okay. I'm not sure I understand that.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know if I understand that either, but I think if you were going to use nuclear weapons, you would use them against the capital of Ukraine, and because the nukes that they're moving, the nukes that are in that video are 1 megaton missiles that only have a range of 11,000 kilometers. So this isn't an intercontinental ballistic missile. This isn't the big guys. This is something small that he's going to use close enough to home to do what he wants to do with that scenario, and may not get a complete nuclear volley coming back at him, which I don't think would happen. I think what would happen
I was talking about right before you came on, Raven, is we should be resisting any type of battlefield nukes.
Yes. But I think what would happen is he would end up with a conventional warfare coming back at him from pretty much every nation on Earth that there's no way in hell that he could deal with. So he would use.
Do you think it really matters though that it's conventional if it's like from every nation on Earth? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's no, like Galen was saying a moment ago, there's no good scenario where there's the use of nuclear weapons, right? I mean, I understand, Galen, what you mean about it's almost irresponsible to talk about it, because by talking about it, you kind of normalize the idea that it's something within the realms of reasonable possibility, and it's not reasonable. It's fucking unreasonable. And we have to make sure that we don't lose sight of that. There's no rational reason to use nuclear weapons.
Right. There's degrees of bad. Right. It's degrees of bad.
It's degrees of awful.
Well, whatever. I mean, but there's different degrees of it. There might not be anything good, but there's less bad and there's more bad, right? So I mean, the what he's moving around, right? The pieces that he has in motion on the field are not intercontinental ballistic missiles. These aren't, world-ending missiles. These are, I am going to utterly destroy my neighbor because I'm not going to win this fight. So if I'm going to lose, they're going to lose too. That is, and again, last resort, if he's going to lose, which I mean he is, but
yeah. So here's what I want to say. I'll start off with a preface that I'm going to say as far as what you said about the use of nuclear weapons, Paul. I agree with you 100%. That any use of nuclear weapons, certainly in this conflict, but in any conflict I can imagine, would be irresponsible. Let's get that out of the way. So one thing I think that you did, though, that I irritated me a little bit because Raven was not suggesting that we should be doing. She's more predicting what's likely to happen. So can we please stop interrupting that with we shouldn't do it? Yes, we know we should. No one should do it. Let's just stipulate. We all agree no one should do it. Anyone does it is horrible. And any nuclear weapon use, big or small, is abysmal and is likely to result in a horrible escalation. Okay. That said, here's one problem where we're at right now. First of all, I don't think he's going to use them. Okay. I think I think that he wants to scare everybody. I think he wants to basically cow the rest of the West and the rest of the world from doing what we've been doing, what we might do in the future, so forth and so on. Now, but I will say this, and here's the problem for where we're at. Because I agree with you. Even if he uses nukes, it would be irresponsible for us to use a nuke back because it will result in an escalation. Okay. That said, it can't go unanswered. It cannot go unanswered. We cannot live in a world where a bully with a lot of nukes is just going to decide, fuck it, I'm going to blow that city off the world and no one's going to do anything because he's going to keep fucking doing it. Simple as that. And so basically, my take on what, based on the various sources I've been watching and my own take on, my past history of paying attention to this type of topic, is that we will have a response, a conventional response, and the size and location of the conventional response will depend on the size and location of any nuclear weapons he uses. That basically we're going to let him know that no, you can't do that. You're going to ratchet us up to world ending. We're not going to accept that. We're going to fight to stop you from doing that. And if you and there's going to be a price to pay. It's not going to be a nuclear weapon, but there's going to be a price to pay for your horrendous decision. And that can be, anywhere, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be within Ukraine. It could be, Russia has stuff all over the world. We have stuff all over the world. There's a lot of things we can do far short of using a nuclear weapon to get the point across. Now, the thing is that as far as in Ukraine itself, if he were to use like a tactical nuclear weapon, my guess is that we will intercede with air power. We will deploy Patriot missiles for free in Ukraine, and we will destroy Russia's anti-air capability completely within about a week. We will destroy any aircraft that they have in theater within about 2 weeks.
Yeah, the floodgates would open.
Floodgates would open, and basically we say, okay, look, we just made your war that much harder. Don't push us. Because here's the thing to remember, Ukraine's doing a great job of defending their territory, trying to take their territory back, but they're working with limited resources. Think about the fact that the United States and a few allies knocked off an Iraqi army that was actually bigger in a few weeks. And right now this war is at 7 months. And now you have a Russian force that's demoralized, fairly well broken material-wise, low on supplies, very low on morale. It wouldn't last very long. He's got to know, and quite more importantly, his subordinates know it. The people in the military know this. And he may be a nihilist, but I don't think they are.
Well, I hear what you're saying. I don't know, man. I don't have answers, so I'm not going to pretend I do. Okay, I'm not gonna say this ought to happen or this ought not to happen, blah blah, etc. Insofar as certain things about what you said, but I mean, what sent the little red light spinning in my head, Joe, when you were doing your little soliloquy there, was you said it'll be over in a week. I'm thinking, fuck, where have I heard that before?
I'm going by actual historical results.
I know, but I mean, I'm positive I've heard that about Afghanistan. I'm pretty sure I heard it about Iraq as well.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing, Paul. And I was watching. Actually, it was one of Bo's videos earlier today. He made the great point. The war in Iraq. We won the war in Iraq literally, the second one in 3 weeks. We lost the peace because we basically expect the military to. It's in the same way we misuse the police, and we have the police doing things that they shouldn't do, and they end up doing it very badly. We basically have to try using the military to do nation building, and that's not their job. They don't have the skill set for it. So the war was over very quickly. The peace was broken because we did a shitty job of following up.
Well, I mean, I'm not even going to discuss the Iraq war really because it's not germane to what we're talking about right now. No, I will respectfully disagree with you, but it's really not worth going into. But yeah, because I mean, I hear what you're saying about losing the peace, that part, but I mean, like, we lost it pretty hard, and we lost it by our own actions. Where'd he go? Did I make him mad?
I don't know. It sounded like he was in the middle of a word when he left, so I don't know.
Oh, right. Oops. I hope I didn't make him mad. But anyway, No, yeah, enough said. I'm more concerned about as regards. I personally think that moving missiles around is just theater. That's me. You know, I think he wants this kind of hyperbole, not hyperbole, but what's the word? Agitation from people in the West, and he wants people to be afraid. And Biden, quite honestly, accidentally, I hope, played right into it by mentioning the possibility of Armageddon and all that kind of stuff. I mean, and that sort of gives Putin his fear card. You know, you played the card and it worked because Biden picked up the baton and waved it. You know. What happened? Hello?
Hey,
Hey,
so I think that any more of this nuclear saber rattling pretty much warrants one of those precision missiles to assassinate him. Like he is on the precipice of starting a world nuclear war, and I would at this point, think that any world leader should, take the chance and say, you know what, if we assassinate him, I'll just go on trial for the war crime of assassinating a head of state,
Wow.
and we'll see which countries in the world were, scared with us, to the point where this had to be done.
Wow.
That's where I'm at with it right now.
Yeah, that's something. I don't know, man. See, I've got this old fashioned sort of
I'm not seeing a lot of nationalism in this conversation.
well, I don't know about that, but we can
I
talk
don't
about that in a minute. But just to Michael's point, from my point of view, the trying not to escalate a conflict is an art form, right? And when someone's determined to escalate it, it becomes even more difficult to de-escalate it, right? I mean, I accept all that, right? But this idea, with respect, Michael, assassination, in my opinion, is never okay, right? And I know, and I understand we're talking about someone who, I understand what the stakes are, and people, always make the thing: if you could have assassinated Hitler back before all the genocide, blah blah, would you do it? And I get all that, but I mean, like, I don't know, I'm a due process, right to a fair trial kind of guy. And so I mean, how do you arrest like the most protected person in the world, right? He's got to be in the top 5 most protected people in the world, right? So I don't so in terms of even getting to him to assassinate him would be pretty hard, but getting to him to arrest him is probably impossible, and I accept that, but I don't accept the legitimacy of assassination.
And to a point, I don't as well. I think anyone who did it would then need to step down from their role as head of state and allow themselves to be tried by the world. So if anyone should ever make that decision, they should also cede their right to lead.
Well, I don't think Putin really even has a right to lead, does he? He's managed to keep himself in power by hook and by crook for the best part of 20 years.
Yeah. And as far as not being able to imagine a good use of a nuke, I would say by his own general underneath his own bunker would be the best use of a nuke. If he's going to order that nukes be used, they can take him out with the one closest to him. And that would be my best use of a nuke.
Shudder.
Him first.
I don't know what to say. Now in the chat that the viewers can't see, Galen mentioned a minute ago, I'll bring it up, that the nationalism in the conversation was nauseating, and then Raven mentioned that she didn't see any nationalism in the conversation as such. So can you elaborate what you meant by that, Galen?
Yeah.
If it's not obvious, I don't know how to explain it.
I mean, I get it.
It's like it's so overwhelmingly it's just like I feel like I'm getting hit in the face with it, and it's like, is anybody being punching anyone? I'm like, I don't know what conversation y'all are in, but it's apparently not the one I'm in. I mean, I think the reason is there's a different way of looking at things here, and that's what it really comes down to. There's a very different perspective. So, I can't, like, if you don't already see something, I don't know what to say. I think there's a very limited way this discussion has gone about. It's very limited.
It's all right.
I
often feel like you're in a different conversation than the rest of us, so it's all right.
That's true. I am.
So I stated earlier that I was surprised that Russia was not as strong as it was in the movies, and I completely admit that nationalistic part of me, having bought into the propaganda of the Cold War, that Russia it was just as powerful as the U.S., and then watching them falter against the Ukraine, I'm just like, my goodness, like everything I knew is upside down. So
Well,
I admit my nationalistic perspective from the U.S. up front.
I'm not terribly surprised. After the Cold War, there was a flood of information about the Soviet Union, just like that, just flowed around the world. And one of the things that came out was that they were a very successful paper tiger. That they were never nearly as strong as they made themselves out to be, and a lot of the strength that they had came at the expense of things like food. They built a military machine that had nothing to support it. So from the outside, they looked a lot more formidable than they really were.
That reminds me of something in high school. I took a class called comparative government, and in that class, my teacher, Mr. Frazier, pointed out, I can't even remember what the percentages were now, but the percentage of the Soviet Union's GDP that was spent on the military in the 70s when I was in high school was like, a huge chunk, let's say. And what I'm amused by in a dark way now is that our percentage of our military spending is greater than that. And back then, the teacher said that was why, and this is years before the end of the Soviet Union, of course. And my teacher said that the seeds for their destruction were built in because they were spending more on defense than their economy could sustain, right? And I think we have a similar situation in this country. The slight difference might be that we do use up our weapons by using them, so anyway, let it be the most obvious thing be said that obviously we don't want anything like this to happen. I hope it's just a bunch of saber rattling. As much as I find that distasteful, it's a lot better than actual saber using, right? I mean, I keep on hearing commentators on American media talking about how the West needs to give Putin an off ramp so he can save face. To which I say bullshit. You know what I mean? You don't get to save face when you invade a country. There's no scenario that you're supposed to come out as anything other than the bad guy, right? He's annexed parts of Ukraine, which, if you add them up together, are larger than Portugal. You know what I mean? And that can't be okay because, as Michael alluded to earlier, if he gets away with it, they won't stop.
Right.
So part of our problem now is that externally, a lot of our solutions might be to let him keep some of what he annexed. Right? That's like the compromises that the external world will put on it. And then as soon as we get to that point, Ukraine's not stopping at just any sort of compromise. They want their whole country back. They're not allowing for any compromise we want our whole country back. Crimea included.
Yeah, there shouldn't be a compromise to that. You know what I mean? I mean, I know I have a romantic idea that the United Nations has the potential to actually be something in this world, right? But it's largely ceremonial, and I know that. But if you're a member of the United Nations, part of the point for a country of joining the United Nations is that by joining the United Nations, your established borders are internationally recognized as your established borders. So that's one of the benefits of being in the United Nations, right? And those borders are therefore protected, supposedly, by international law. And it's not legal to annex another country's real estate, right? And so it should not be allowed to succeed. And but at the same time, I don't want us interfering at all, other than what we're already doing, which is being, I guess, practically supportive. And even that leaves a taste in my mouth, but it's better than the alternative, which is that he just rolls over and steals land. And, then we're having the same conversation 5 years from now about different parts of Ukraine, or maybe parts of Georgia, or other places he wants to, reclaim as the old Soviet Union bloc.
Well, this didn't start with Crimea. This started with part of Georgia.
Right.
He's been doing this and getting away with it, and having us
Chechnya as
just look,
well.
and just having us look the other way, because it would be really hard for us to inject ourselves that far into the world.
Europe. Yeah.
So he's been taking little pieces that he could, and keep it to where we couldn't intervene. And it's all been leading up to this. We backed down from 3 different land grabs, and why should we insert ourselves now? Well, I think we should, but he's thinking you've proven that you're bitches. You're all bitches. You're not going to do anything. And then he tries a bigger grab, and then we all get all butthurt.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I can't really see any good way out of the whole situation, to be honest, other than capitulation on the part of the Russians, and I just don't see that happening. If y'all don't mind excusing me for a moment, I've got to go deal with something, and I will be.
Galen?
Yeah,
How you feeling?
not great.
What's going on?
Just don't feel well. Had a bad weekend, bad week.
Me too.
Just felt like hell.
Yeah.
One of those, the whole thing with the cerebrospinal fluid leak and the hypoglycemic nature. It's just eating me.
Yeah.
I did do reading. I did study this week. I did do a lot of reading. That was good. Got a lot of reading done, but and I took care of a lot of other issues. But physically, psychologically, I'm fine. Psychologically, I'm fine. Physically, not horrible.
Okay.
F-. Bomb through the earth and hell.
Would it be dangerous for you to laugh?
I don't know. It would not.
Okay, because I just don't want to kill you.
No. Raven can tell funny jokes.
Yeah.
Doesn't always do it, but Raven can be funny.
No.
Yeah, Raven's dangerous too.
No, I am not funny. Damn it.
Raven's hiding some ICBMs in her bra right now.
Mm-hmm. I am, actually.
Yeah.
How have you been this week, Michael?
Me?
Yeah.
A lot happened last week, and just mentally drained.
Damn.
Not drained in the sense of cerebrospinal fluid, but drained by the amount of calories my brain has burned. Just getting my mind around certain things that happened this week. But I feel like next week is going to be better for me. I have hope still.
What was the thing about this week?
Oh, some clients just got to be extra. That's all. Extra. Why do they all got to be extra?
So what did I miss? Sorry, I had to go outside for a second.
Nothing.
You missed that the price of this Sparks root beer right here, right?
Right.
This 12-pack was $8.99.
Okay, no way. That's awful.
Fucking $8.99. That means that I'm spending more than 50 cents per can. Like I remembered. Like it used to be like a quarter per can.
Right.
Like it was cheaper to get it by that case than buy it from a vending machine. Now I feel like pretty soon it'll be like people are going to smoke a cigarette, and it's going to be a sign that like they could have just lit a dollar on fire.
It's already like that.
Already, yeah.
Yeah.
So you get 20 cigarettes per pack, and it's like $11 for the pack, right?
Oh, I don't know. Right. In the UK, I haven't really been around smokers in this country, but in the UK, it was like 50p or 60p a cigarette. So yeah.
Oh, you want to bring up the UK? Did you know that the pound versus the dollar is tanking?
I did know that.
It's nearing a 1-to-1 ratio now.
First time ever.
Yeah. Would that have been good for you at any part of your stay there?
Well, if I was moving from here to there and had a lot of money that I wanted to change over, that would be the best for me coming from here to there. It's
Yeah.
not so good if you're coming from there to here, because once upon a time when I first moved over there, it was about $1.66 for a pound. All right. And the worst it ever got was $2.12 for a pound. And that was back in late 1990, early 91. And so that if you're coming from Britain and you want to go on holiday in America and you're getting more than $2 for every pound, and back then $2 would definitely buy you more in America than a pound would buy you in England. So it seemed like a really good rate. But now if it's even, I mean, that's going to be very interesting for someone like me, because I've always had my brain automatically doing the calculation in my head about, whether something's too expensive or not based on what it used to cost in the other country, basically, what I'm more used to.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
when I eventually go back to the UK, prices will have gone up so much I won't even, I won't even know how much it's going to cost me to live, really.
Raven, what's the price of goldfish?
Of goldfish.
Yeah.
We get
throw the ping pong ball into the little round cup.
No, we get the big box of goldfish crackers.
Yeah.
The one that looks like a giant milk carton.
Yeah.
$8.99 on sale.
What was it before?
$7.99 on sale.
Ooh, that is some low inflation right there. It's still inflation, but
That's not low.
I don't feel like you're feeling it like the rest of us.
That's like 12%. That's not low.
We were talking about oatmeal a few weeks back. It went from like $3.99 a box to like $6.99 a box.
Well,
Yeah.
I can't stand the fact that sometimes I go to the store and it's like $6 for a loaf of bread. That's like 30p a slice.
Yeah, we have rye bread. I get the loaves of rye bread. It's $4.95 for a loaf of bread.
Well, I might start baking my own bread again. We used to do that back in the 90s. Used to bake our own bread. Tastes quite good.
I don't have the patience.
Yeah, that's the problem. You'll be baking bread all the time, basically.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't upset Joe so much. I'm feeling bad about it.
don't think you upset him. I mean, he's in command of himself. He feels that he doesn't need to be here. How he interprets the world.
Listen,
he's
man.
responsible
Listen,
for
man.
it.
If I could have avoided hurting my friend's feelings, I would have avoided it. I didn't realize, as I said what I said, that I was going to hurt his feelings. But so yeah, anytime it's never my intention to hurt someone's feelings, but that's a poor excuse.
So something I noticed in that exchange, and I know you're adult enough to hear this, I thought was odd was you brought up Iraq, and then you said Iraq isn't really relevant to the conversation, but you brought it up.
I guess I did.
I thought that was odd, and I don't know. Maybe you should.
I guess I did do that. My whole thing was I just didn't want to relitigate the Iraq War because we're talking about what's happening right now, and I was, when he said about how we lost the peace over there. I mean, that's an easy way to say something very complicated, and to me, I mean, just the stuff that we know from there's so many war crimes that we did in Iraq, you know what I mean? And so losing the peace is a way to say it that I just have a hard time with. That's all. And but I certainly didn't mean to offend him. And so, I'm going to have some work to do there.
I felt it was, I didn't feel it was irrelevant to bring up any other wars, or you'd have to relitigate it to make a point. I mean, to make a point, that's fine if you want to and keep on subject. I don't think it has to be one or the other.
Yeah.
Well,
sometimes that's the way it is, though. You have to go through the whole thing in order to get to the end point, which is the relevant point that you're trying to make. But I mean, I don't know if that was really the case here or not. Whatever, it didn't really matter to me.
Yeah, but it mattered to Joe. I don't like hurting people's feelings, especially Joe. I love Joe.
Then again, I declined pretty much to discuss nationalism for a certain reason.
Discussing whether or not certain things happened on the battlefield or not in the battlefield or in prisons or whatever, discussing the facts of what happened isn't nationalism. I mean, if you can't talk about the facts without it having been labeled as something as nationalism, then you don't have a conversation.
I think what I'm saying, this is why I didn't bring it up, because I don't think you get my point. I understand yours.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it because, like I said, discussing the facts about what happened isn't nationalism. Those are the facts. Either it happened or it didn't happen, and it doesn't matter what flag it happened under. If it happened, it happened. If it is, it is. That's not nationalism. That's just the facts.
You're not speaking to me about what I was saying.
Because I don't understand what you're talking about. Because nobody said anything I could identify as being nationalistic.
Which is why I was referring to Paul, and why I understood he said he wish he could have not brought something up, and I said, well, I declined because I only wanted to go. I put it there even reluctantly, and I didn't want to go and hash it out, and for certain reasons.
And none of us understood what you meant.
Right, because I felt it would do what Paul, he wished he could have
chase everybody off the screen.
I don't want to, have a bludgeoning over it. So I just was like,
sure.
I put it there and declined.
The nationalism in the conversation is nauseating, which, okay, is fair. That's a fair comment if there was nationalism in the conversation. I didn't hear any.
Well, I think I'm not really sure. I can't speak for Galen, but for me, what was happening in that same moment, which I was uncomfortable with, was the whole "it'll be over in a week" kind of thing. That had a kind of a jingoistic flavor to it to me.
Who said that?
Because,
who said that?
Either you or Joe or both of you, maybe. I'm not even sure.
Oh my God, no! Yeah. Why would I say something like that? It's been going on for 7 months.
Right.
Well, I mean, I was putting that up even after the thing with Joe, even though we have different perspectives on things, even though we're friends and we get along extremely well despite that, and we like hearing each other out. It's just that, I felt in different ways the conversation was nauseating, and I'm sure he did. He said he was irritated. things already. I mean, it's one of those conversations could easily get everyone irritated.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, that happens sometimes. I mean, when Roe was overturned, I was having a show, and it turned out to be a total shit show. And Joe and I both actually, rage quit the conversation because we both went into the show already pissed off and annoyed, not at each other, just at the world. And yeah, when you're already having an issue, it becomes hard to have or to engage in conversation.
Yeah. Well, and that's partly me as well. If I'm fair, I mean, this has been a hard week for me. You guys, except for Michael, didn't hear the conversation about it beforehand, but it's been a hard week. Put it that way. So, I might be less than my best, in terms of my hosting suaveness or the lack thereof. Anyway,
I think you're doing fine.
Oh well, I mean, Galen, trust me. Over the past 2.5 years, you have missed some roaring arguments on this bloody podcast. There have been times when I thought people were going to bleed from hypertension, right? But
I will say though about over in a week. I mean, I didn't catch that, but because I only really catch about half of what's being said because I'm trying to interject so much. But if somebody was saying that if the U.S. were to get involved and whatever, that the whole thing would be over in a week, well, that's probably not that far off. That's also, I don't think, nationalistic. I think the military capability and capacity of this country could overwhelm just about any other country pretty quickly, pretty easily. We only spend $1 trillion a day on the military. $2 trillion.
Yeah,
So,
it would be over so quick that we could just declare mission accomplished right away.
right. Probably on like a battle cruiser. With a big Ooh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's the reality though. I mean, as far as military capability, whether you like it or not, whether it's good or bad or whatever, it is what it is. In a flight suit, yes, Free Machine.
Raven, there was a point 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, where Kate said that she couldn't tell whether I was joking or not. I live for those moments. That was mwah. For me, that was right in the zone.
Yeah, right. That's the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Well, I'm quite used to people not understanding my sense of humor, so I assume people don't get what I'm saying half the time, and not because of arrogance, just because of experience. Like I say, I've just like so many times I think I'm the funniest motherfucker alive, right? But no one else seems to get my jokes.
So
That's the problem.
At my place of business, we usually have like birthday parties and going away parties for people. And one particular person, after we had a bunch of going away parties for other people, based on what their favorite food was, they decided to make a peanut butter and jelly bar for her. Right? And I was like, that is not fair for other people to get like Mexican food from all the way from Boulder shipped in here. And then we've all got these hot plates full of great Mexican food. And then she gets peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. That's just, she's worth more than that. We should do something like, put doilies around and like have like a tea set like the Mad Hatter thing and like go all out. And I was joking. I was fucking joking when I said all that shit. I have the pictures. I posted them on Facebook. We had the doilies. I was joking, but the doilies showed up. And I was like, I was right there in the sweet spot and I didn't know it. They weren't getting my humor. and they just went along with it.
Well,
we should have done better than peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for her. Even though she liked it, I don't think that that's appropriate for a going away dinner. or lunch or anything. But it worked, and it might have been the doilies.
Whatever works, man. Whatever works.
Yeah.
I'm going to change the subject a little bit here, and to something that Michael and I briefly touched on before we went live. So the other day, I think it might have even been yesterday. If not, it was the day before, though. Our old friend Kanye, did some tweet basically that was, basically anti-Semitic, and saying he was going to go all DEFCON 3. And he used the words DEathCon as in DEATH con instead of DEFCON, which is what it's supposed to be. Anyway, and just as an aside, do you think when people do shit like that, that's blatantly dumb, like on purpose? I mean, do you think it's on purpose? Do you think they do it so that we'll all kick up a fuss and go, hey, well, because by doing that, we amplify their shit?
To be fair, he's not the first person to make that mistake.
Of course not.
Prior to him, it was George W. Bush.
Oh, I was going to say, I was really worried you're going to say Joe Biden there for a
No.
second.
DEFCON is defense condition, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. Defense condition. Yeah.
Yeah, DEFCON.
Yeah. DEFCON.
So I would say like Donald Trump, he says a lot of outrageous stuff in order to stir up shit. And it's not just presidential stuff. That's his MO. He's a loudmouth to be a loudmouth just to stir up shit. I think Kanye's just an idiot. I think he has no clue whether or not things he tweets will be controversial or not. I just think he's an idiot.
But I mean, I wish I could call up. I'm going to have a look for it real quick. I don't think I retweeted it or anything like that because I didn't want to amplify it. So I might not be able to find it right now, but I'll have a quick look. But the basic problem, though, is that people with a huge platform say stupid shit, and then then we have to debate how stupid it is or not, and blah blah blah. And it's just and there's a whole thing about people using their platform, and you got to push back against it, because if you don't push back against it, and then so they make it's basically like this problem action solution thing, where they problem reaction solution thing, where they create a problem so that there's a reaction, so that we have to come up with a solution for it, right? And I'm not sure. I can't find it here. It's not the kind of thing I would have retweeted. Anyway, but
Kanye tweet you're looking for?
I can't find it right off the bat.
I think they removed it.
Oh, well, that might be why I can't find
I
it.
think I read a tweet that it was removed.
Right. Okay. But like, I don't know. I feel like the outraged merchants get away with what they get away with an awful lot of the times because we have an understandable and predictable reaction to their outrage, and then we amplify it for them, by making a fuss about it is I think should happen to a certain degree. But again, it's like, what kind of fuss do you make? It's the same way I feel about school shootings, for example. I mean, how much is it that they're looking for the infamy, and so by giving them notoriety, are we making the problem perpetuate itself? Sorry, everyone else seems to be looking shit up. What are you guys looking up?
I don't know. I mean,
I looked up Kanye West because of you, which has never happened before.
Machine thinks Kanye the Poe. I think Kanye is, I'm biased here as an addiction counselor, but I think his brain is burned out from drugs because he used to make some pretty good music. And that's why we give him the time of day now.
Right.
But he no longer makes that good music, and his ideas are shit.
But I mean, isn't he like fabulously wealthy because of other business investments that he's made since he was a producer? I mean, doesn't he have like I don't know, clothes or cologne or other stuff like that he makes whopping money on?
I thought his clothing line would have gone over great on Tatooine. All the burlap sacks that he used and all that.
Right.
It was,
I just
it,
looked at
it
his
looked very
Twitter.
sand people chic.
He's talking about 44 years of dictatorship in Iran, and I replied to him just then, and I put, "You mean 69?" Going back to the overthrow of the Iranian government. It's like what are you complaining about? There's a lot to complain about going back in Iran. Went back decades. And it's like Kanye can't even get his history right.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Twitter is going all death con on him.
Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry about that. I had to do stuff in my other window there for a second.
Yep.
I do have other windows up, but I'm not looking at them while I'm in the show. Just so you know, I don't do that when I'm on shows. So
You're the only one.
I prepare. I don't. Right now I have the shakes. I don't feel good, so using my hands hurts. So it's every time I use the mouse, it's like use the mouse. It's like my body says "fuck you," and then I use it again, "fuck you," and I'm like, okay. I feel like Cartman in South Park, the movie.
I spent the entire day in bed. I woke up with a cold. I don't know, really bad. It's just a miserable, rotten cold that Damon brought home from school, and it ripped.
You had to test yourself again, Raven.
What?
Have you had to test yourself again for the old COVID?
I doubt it would be COVID again so soon.
Right.
I mean, I just got over COVID, and I woke up this morning. I wanted to die. So, whatever.
I have not contracted it yet, so I didn't get it.
Yeah, no. Up until recently, I could say that too.
Yet I haven't got it yet. Best I can say.
School kids.
I can say I haven't had any symptoms of it yet, and I've never tested positive, but it's very likely that I've been exposed.
At the baseball game, at least, Michael.
COVID was at a very low point at that point.
You keep telling yourself that, buddy. That's fine.
Yeah, and I'm planning on going to a play that's going to be social distanced this month. It's called Futurity. My friend Haas is in it. Haas has been on the show before. Haas went to the game with me as well, so that's another way he was on this show.
Yeah.
But just my clients usually have living arrangements where they're living around a whole bunch of other people. And so I just figure that I'm exposed to all those people, and then they come one by one and see me. So that's why I am fully vaccinated. And
what's
I've never
fully
had
vaccinated these days? 3, 4, 5 shots? How many is fully vaccinated?
For me, 4.
4, okay.
But there are some people who 5 would be the number.
Or up to 5, yeah. Like I'm about up to 5. I have to go get the most recent one with the bivalent.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
I have the bivalent, but for a while, people were allowed to get a 4th shot, and I wasn't because I am not at risk enough. I mean, I tried to be fat enough, but I wasn't. So they're like, "No, you're not fat enough, fatty."
Well, I don't know. I qualified for it, but I'm also over 50 and have HIV. So
Cheater.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I just wanted to bring up real quick. I see the comment over here on the side by Deep Ashtray. I'll put it on the screen here. This one. Herschel Walker got $500,000 for the stupid shit he said about finding grace and calling the media liars. and that's another, just to the point we were just making a minute ago. I mean, I think they figured out that saying stupid shit gets them more coverage than if they were talking about issues, and so that's why they say stupid shit.
Yep.
And the fact that they can say stupid shit and fundraise off it is really depressing. You know what I mean? I mean, they're literally fundraising off of lies. And I guess that's okay because reasons.
Well, Herschel Walker's son, Christian, has been lighting him up on Twitter,
Yeah.
and it is fun to watch drama. I will give you, like, I had my fill of drama this week, and when I saw his own son going at him like that, I was like, wow, drama's fun again.
Well, right. And then it got even better. But that's the problem. Because of all this bullshit, the name Herschel Walker is getting repeated probably 10 times to every one time Raphael Warnock's name is being said in the media. And
Yeah.
Raphael Warnock is a completely different class of human being, much less politician, than Herschel Walker.
Yeah, Herschel Walker says he found grace. Raphael Warnock is reverend.
Right. That doesn't mean he's any better than Herschel Walker, but he's definitely smarter than that guy. And I don't have any qualms about saying Herschel Walker does not seem very bright, right? I mean, maybe that's just a persona and I fell for it, but it works because he doesn't seem very bright.
No, he got hit in the head too much.
People say that, and I understand why they say that, but that's not funny, bro. It's just not funny.
Well, I wasn't making a joke. It's true.
Oh, okay, right. But you mean
true.
seriously thinking he's that stupid because he's been hit in the head so many
Yes.
times?
Yeah.
Literally. Oh, okay.
I see Herschel Walker as a person who has deep psychological problems. He's had them going back to childhood. I know a lot about him. I try to not look at things about him due to that, but there's just a bit of a bias with me with him, with his issues. I just don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. But I'll just say that I think he's a deeply troubled psychological person.
Well, and like he's clearly I mean, only 100 Americans get to be senators, for Christ's sake. It's a prestigious, serious fucking job.
Was.
Well, point taken. But I mean, like, it is a privilege to be a United States senator, right? And it used to be something that you had to serve in politics for a while and work your way up to. You never started in a Senate. I mean, you know, you start in state legislature, then maybe you become a rep in the House of Representatives for a couple of years, and then you work your way up to Senate when someone dies, you know. You don't just get launched in there because Trump likes you and you had you on The Apprentice once, you know. I mean, it's just like, I don't know.
I will say that his kid, though, that's lighting him up on Twitter, he's a piece of shit too, though.
Is he?
Yeah, he's a gay far right Republican.
How come he doesn't spontaneously combust?
I have no idea, but he's pretty conservative. And the way he's been like freaking out at his old man is just like, you know, little man needs to sit down and figure out why he's a conservative. Because of the issues that he has with his old man, it sounds like he really should not be.
I don't like to psychoanalyze people based on one video I saw on Twitter, so I can't really speak to that point. But I will say, man, that you know, it was. I mean, Michael say about watching other people's drama is kind of fun. I felt that when I watched that video, and I had a bit of schadenfreude about it, right? Because I'm terrified that Warnock might not win. You know, he had a hard enough time getting elected last year, for Christ's sake, you know, and that was a nail biter too. But the person he was running against was already an established senator, and he beat them. So if you can beat them but not Herschel Walker, something's wrong somewhere, man.
Well, from Reagan to Trump to Herschel Walker to even Schwarzenegger, if they can't do it with their message, they'll do it with star power.
Does he really have that kind of star power?
No.
Football is a religion in Georgia.
Okay. And did he play for the was it Georgia Falcons? Is that the team in Atlanta? Who did he play for?
I don't think he played for the Falcons.
He played for Georgia at the University of Georgia, but
All
later
right.
he played for a variety of NFL teams. He played in the USFL under the Generals, which were owned by Donald Trump. Then he played for the Dallas Cowboys. Then he was traded to the Minnesota Vikings. Then he went on to other teams, Philadelphia Eagles. Eventually went back to the Cowboys.
So Republicans don't vote for Republicans. They vote against Democrats. I mean, and that's pretty much the platform. The party platform is you vote for something with an R next to it. It doesn't matter what they say, what they do, what they stand for. You're just voting against a D.
Right. Yeah, I mean that reminds me of something. Let's see if I have it here. Yes, I do.
The best to hope for when it comes to a Republican heavy district like mine is that Republicans are so uncomfortable with who's running for their party that they just don't vote at all. That's the best you can hope for. I think that's why I did so well in my county.
Hang on a second, friends. I want to see if I can do something here just to show you this. This is it. Yeah. Can you even see that? Or the fucking reflection's too bad. Hang on.
The fucking reflection's too bad.
Yeah, hang on. Let me see if I can
Do something about the fucking reflection. Okay.
No, it's worse. Okay, so there's this cartoon that I'm going to put it back on the other side. There's this cartoon I saw by Mike Lukovich, which was awesome. It's got Freddy Krueger holding up a sign saying F. Krueger for Republican senator. And then there's these two MAGA people saying, who cares about his past? He'll keep us, he'll protect us from the Democrats. And that pretty much sums it up. They would vote, they'd vote for Satan in high heels if there was such an entity, as long as it had an R next to its name.
Well, people always do that tribalistic lesser of evils bullshit.
Okay, so that's not the same thing, though. And lesser of the evils sometimes is necessary. But like just voting for somebody because of the letter that's next to their name isn't the same as voting for the lesser evil.
Well, I mean, isn't that what people are doing when they say vote blue no matter who? They're voting because of
they're voting for the letter next to the name, and I think that's silly too. Although in that instance, during the Trump regime, that was the lesser of the evils.
Sure, I mean I hear that, but it just it's just to the point of people voting just because of the letter. I mean I think is exactly that. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to be voting for Democrats. Because I want to stop these MAGA people in their tracks, and
unfortunately, that's what it's come down to.
It definitely comes down to that, yeah. So that's what I'm doing, but I don't know, man. I'm pretty nervous about it because it's not just it's the governorships that I'm more nervous about than anything else, right? That are up for grabs right now because
or secretary of states that are elected in.
Exactly right, and they've actually announced that if they win enough governorships, I mean they have the temerity. That's how confident they are of pulling this coup off, right? They're telling us they're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how confident they are, and I hope it doesn't work. I hope that these people don't get elected in. Rob Reiner said on Twitter the other day that if you're voting for Democrats, you're voting to preserve democracy. And if you're voting for Republicans, you're voting for fascism. And that's not hyperbole. That's what he said. It's not hyperbole. And Kazoom, just the day before that, had said to me on Twitter that there's this narrative out there that, Democrats, if Republicans win, it will be because of gerrymandering. It'll be because of voter suppression. It won't be because people actually voted for Republicans. There's this narrative out there that says that. And I understand that concern, right? But I lost my train of thought. The point I actually wanted to make about that. But I just think that we have to make sure that when it comes to who Stalin once said, it's not who casts the votes, it's who counts the votes. And Trump has been repeating that line, right? It doesn't matter who casts votes, it matters who counts the votes. And the Republicans have taken that to heart. And that's obviously troubling because that's literally a Stalin quote, you know. It was arguably the worst of all the Soviet leaders. So go ahead.
They keep proving that they really love those old Soviet leaders, even though they say that they don't. You know, they keep proving it by emulating them.
Well, I think about my comment earlier about the whole mutually assured destruction doctrine and how that seems to have actually horrifyingly worked insofar as it's kept us from having a major nuclear exchange for 75 years. But I think of the same sort of thing here as regards electoral politics. You know, it's like if these people get into their positions where they can basically pull off the coup, then what do we do? I mean, is there going to be, because that puts me on the side of we need to do something rebellious, right? Which is exactly what I've been criticizing the Trumpers for from 2021. And so we're walking a tightrope here, I think anyway, where they're setting it up so that we can't use the same arguments against them in the future because they were saying those same things about the past. The election was stolen and you didn't believe us. You know, I think there's saying, look, you didn't believe us when we said it and you got your president in and now we're doing it and, you know, we're going to get him in by whatever reason. And you can't say it's not legitimate because, you know, that's what happened last. I think that's what they're aiming for. Am I making sense or am I talking gobbledygook?
They definitely have a knack for changing their narrative to fit their goals in the moment. That's why they got one more Supreme Court justice than they should have. You know, it's too close to the election. Oh no, now it's our guy, so he needs to get one in like lickety split. You know,
they literally confirmed Amy Coney Barrett after people had already started voting, so they couldn't have been more hypocritical if they tried.
Right.
Yeah.
You know. Oh, by the way, it's just root beer, nothing toxic. You know. Anyway,
I approve.
Yeah, I got this stuff because this is a wild subject change now. So in the UK, I was there for 30 years, and I'm famous for being like one of those people that everybody hates that can just eat whatever I want without really putting on weight very much, right? And in the UK, I used to consume a lot of soda pop and a lot of junk food for sure. I consume half or less than half of what I used to consume, but somehow I put on more weight here in America. And I found out that it's because in soda pops in this country, almost every soda pop, all the big brands of soda pop anyway, have high fructose corn syrup in them, right? As opposed to sugar. In the UK, high fructose corn syrup is not allowed in soda pops, and so they use sugar. And I mean, that shit, honestly, I can notice the difference if I'm drinking soda pops or if I'm not drinking soda pops in a week. I can see the difference. It's shocking to me, and it used to be like water to me in the UK, but now it's not. So I got these because I finally found it's like some obscure, not probably a local brand, I don't even know, but made with cane sugar instead of corn syrup. So that's why I'm on that stuff. It's way too expensive though. It's like $1 a bottle.
You know, I too think that high fructose corn syrup is worse than people realize, even though, you know, they'll say that chemically it's just the same as sugar. I'm like, no, there's something else in it. I can feel it. But also it's just so prevalent in products like the little ranch packets that you would get with any food item. Like the ranch dressing is made with high fructose corn syrup. I'm like, how? It's
All
it's
kinds
not
of
even a sweet flavor, but that's what it's made with. And barbecue sauce, ketchup. I thought ketchup was made with tomatoes, but you have to
Right.
buy specifically the one that's made with tomatoes. Most of them are not.
Yeah, and it's really funny because when I first moved over here from the UK, right, um, I used to make a fuss about buying like real maple syrup for my pancakes because I wanted the authentic mapley taste, right? And I didn't want all the synthetic ones are all high fructose corn syrup that is maple flavored, right? And so I would avoid that shit like hell because of the high fructose corn syrup. And I didn't know until my son came to see me last month that there was high fructose corn syrup in the soda pops. I just figured it was the same as it was in the UK. And that totally explains why I'm in a constant fight with my weight now. And I never, ever, ever used to be in a battle about keeping my weight. So, yeah.
There's a lot of candies that basically are high fructose corn syrup, like uh, hot tamales, the cinnamon ones. Those are basically dehydrated high fructose corn syrup,
Wow.
right? And all the candies that are like the Mike and Ike's, uh, everything like the gummy worms,
I love all that shit.
yeah. And so if you're feeling like you're addicted to high fructose corn syrup and you don't want to have a soda, you just want to have a little measured amount, go ahead and take a hot tamale like it was a pill.
Well, I have to be more conscientious about what I'm eating. And I mean, it just seems like they in America they put all kinds of shit in all the processed food, man. I mean, like everything's got sugar and salt added to it. And you know, the conspiracy theorist in me thinks, gosh, are the food manufacturers in cahoots with big pharma and the medical profession industry? Are they all rubbing each other's backs here? What's going on here? Because there's no need for them to put sugar in fucking peanut butter, for example. It's peanut butter.
Right.
It doesn't need sugar, right? But it's in all the it's in all the major peanut butters, And that's just one example. They put salt in things that you wouldn't think would have salt in them either. Things that are sweet, but you look at the ingredients and it says salt. Why is the salt in there? To make you thirsty, of course. You know. Meanwhile, you go to the UK and you get a bag of potato chips and it says on the back ingredients: potatoes, sunflower oil, salt, and that's it.
I found myself thirstier with carbonated water. There's a bunch of different brands of it. Waterloo is in my area. Uh, Sam's Club and Walmart have bubbly, but the pectins that are the fruit flavoring that's natural in the carbonated water, they can actually make you parched in your mouth for more water. And you might drink more of their canned water, but you might just actually have to drop the cans and go for the faucet. It gets that bad for me.
Wow.
I actually prefer making my own potato chips. It's delicious. It's like buying them in the store after you've made them. It just doesn't compare. It's like imagine if you could go get like a hamburger in a bag. It's like, or you can make one at home. It's like, I'm gonna go for the one at home. I don't want to eat some whatever that stuff they call Whopper meat either at fast food places. I just can't eat that. I don't know what that is, but it sure doesn't look like beef.
Well, I definitely prefer home cooked stuff to eating out. However, I'm lazy, so sometimes I will eat out just on that basis alone. Because it's not just that I don't want to cook; it's that I don't want to clean up afterwards. You know, so and that is purely laziness. And there's no other. I'm not going to dress it up in some fancy way. It's purely lazy.
I have my big fryer and I cut I get a bag of potatoes. I cut them up I do the shavings. I put those to the side for the potato chips. Then I can make brown ball potatoes or French fries, whatever I want to do. And then I soak them.
How do you do it in a deep fat fryer, Galen? Don't they all get like stuck together?
No,
So you have like half-inch thick chips, but they're all like 10 chips that are stuck together.
never,
Wow. Okay.
never. It's fine.
No wonder I could never make potato chips at home before because I didn't have a deep fat fryer. Now it all
The
makes
fryer,
sense.
and I have my peanut oil, and they soak them in the peanut oil. It's delicious. Oh yeah, get me on food. I could cook all day if I'm healthy enough to be in the kitchen.
All right, folks. I'm gonna bounce out. So
All right,
I hope,
Raven.
hey, Raven, I hope you feel better.
go ahead, Michael. Say it. Thank you.
No, that it writes itself.
I can see it in your face. You're gonna say something.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out, Raven. We'll see you next week. Cheers.
Good night.
Uh-oh.
Ooh, we're in triplet.
Got to go the other way. Well, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, I don't like the close-up like that. It's
Well, we could do the thing where we're like, making finger guns like Charlie's Angels.
finger guns. Yeah, there you go.
But put us in the triplet again.
In the what?
Like the three columns.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah, like Charlie's Angels. Got you. Okay.
Yeah. Somebody take a screenshot.
All right, do the screenshot. There we go. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
So, we're in the lighthearted phase of this show, and
Sure.
I have not watched anything Marvel since the Iron Man movie, and I don't know which one it was, and so I don't want to talk about anything Marvel.
Okay,
That's good.
we can do that. Yeah.
I watched She-Hulk.
One
Yeah.
day I plan to get on a treadmill and watch all the Marvel things in order, and just walk and watch Marvel and walk.
Wow, that would be a good workout because there's a lot of movies, man.
Yeah,
I
but
would
that day
only
has
add
not come
that
yet.
if I had to pick out, a friend recently said the same thing, and he actually asked me, "Well, what do you suggest I watch, or should I watch them all in order?" And I said, "You can do whatever you want. Like if you want to watch them all in order, that's fine. But if you you don't really have to. You could go look up and fill in the blanks with a lot of stories. Lots of people do that. It's not a big deal. It's really
The
not.
only argument that I could say for watching them all in order is because it's not so much about the movies themselves, is about the secret bit in the credits after the movies, because those follow a certain order building up to Infinity War.
Yeah, they do. I mean, a person can also go back and look at some of that stuff and catch up on the story and see those little in bits. It's easy to watch them on YouTube, and you spend 30 minutes doing it, and then you're caught up. And you could go look at some of the trailers, look at the squibs on what happened in the story, and then you're caught up, and then you're like, I said, well, which ones do you think are really good? And I said Black Panther was good. It's a really good film. Really smart, but also comic book fun, which is very hard to do. And then the Loki series was pretty good. And then the Vision, Scarlet Witch, whatever it was, WandaVision, was weird, but it was interesting, kind of off the wall. And then if you go to the kind of non-MCU Marvel stuff, like the Punisher and Daredevil series were both good.
Yeah, it's actually the whole thing is so vast that I have given up trying to like envelop all of it into my brain. I can't. It's not that I can't. I'm not sure I necessarily want or need to though, because I'm having so much fun following the bits I am following. But anyway, Michael's not following this stuff, so we're talking right past Michael.
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
Michael. I'll
I will
just tell you
say
what I'm into. I'll say what I'm into then. Michael,
What
go
I've
ahead.
seen as far as tactics for watching it is there's people who have already made the list for you online. You can follow chronological in order of release date, or you can follow chronological in order of when it would have happened in the MCU world.
You can do that on Disney Plus as well.
Yeah. And so just, set it and forget it.
Yeah. I would recommend just watching the cinema releases in order. That would be my recommendation, but it doesn't, like Galen said, it doesn't actually matter.
I want to watch. I know Kazim would want to talk about it, but the Rings of Power show, and I haven't watched any of it yet. But for a friend, he wanted me to do some studies, like fantasy literary studies, and do a commentary with him on all of the Tolkien legendarium. And so I have to go back through that. But then that drew me back into reading A Song of Ice and Fire and C.S. Lewis and Norse myths and other legends. And so I got wrapped up into all of that stuff, which is bigger than anything Marvel. But I've read all that stuff before. It just got me back into it, which was nice but at the same time, we talked about like if Joe has ever rage quit, and Raven said that she has before. I went into a server discussing fantasy literature this week on Discord. I lasted 10 minutes. I couldn't take those bastards. It's like I'd rather be around literal xenomorphs than those people. I mean, I used, if I had to rank like the worst fucking like people to have discussions with, political junkies around around election years. That's just you can't get dumber. Yeah, I used to say YouTube atheist discussions were just really stupid because it was just like an anti-language, like fuck that, fuck that, fuck that. It's like, okay, can we say any more? No, fuck that. It's like, okay. And then like, and it's not that the Tolkien people are not that bad, but the ones discussing for some reason who've watched that show Game of Thrones, man, like dumbest people I ever met. I don't know how. I mean, George R. Martin, the reason he hadn't probably put out a book in a decade is why would he want to with fans that stupid? I wouldn't either. I would be like Mark Twain. After I die, 100 years after that, then the books can be released. Just screw them. Screw the fans. I wouldn't mind. I already understand his stories because I've read everything else. So.
Well, I mean, like I have mixed feelings about. I mean, the Rings of Power. Maybe it's very good, and I don't want to prejudge it on the one level, but on the other level, I have mixed feelings about derivatives of established legends. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know. It's because it's not like I'm not saying it should be taboo or anything like that. I'm just saying that I'm not sure if I want to disrupt my own mental landscape of where the Tolkien fantasies fit in my head.
Well, I know, but they already did that also. I don't know where. I haven't seen that to make a critical analysis of it. However, I can tell you those Hobbit films and even the Lord of the Rings movies, I have a lot of problems with.
Sure. The Lord of the Rings
Hobbit
movies. There's problems with the Lord of the Rings movies, especially if you read the books. But I think it was as credible as any attempt to put it on cinema has ever been or could probably be.
But not the Hobbit.
The Hobbit book, my God, they fucking butchered that. It was bad.
It was awful. So I'll see where they stand. However, I do notice that a lot of the people who were putting forth a lot of criticism against all these things, whether it be Marvel properties or anything, or YouTubers like that Nerdrotic and other people like that, are just saying, women, people with dark skin, awful. No, we can't have those people. The guy even opposed Black Panther as just like a black hero. And I'm like, it's like, okay, you just don't want anything with anything other than your skin color. I get it.
Which is, you understand that that's the fact, but you don't actually get it, right? I mean, because I can't get that. I can't understand why these people are so threatened by having a black protagonist in Black Panther, for example, or,
It's a great film. It's a great film. It just is, it's, I can get that a person who calls themselves a race realist is also a racist.
Right.
They don't. I do. I understand that they're saying that. They can put whatever mental gymnastics they want in their head to make, 7 plus 9 equal 46. That's good for you. Good. Cheers to it, buddy. Like, whatever. Still, those Hobbit movies sucked. And, I don't mind stories of any kind. I like hearing, I think one reason we go to stories and to listen to different books and stories, whether they're fiction or nonfiction, it's not like everyone knows I'm well read as much as anybody, but I don't go around being like, oh, I'm knowledgeable. I read and I find out how ignorant I am. I find it profoundly humbling when you read other people's experiences and hear them. I think that's one reason you put this show up, to hear other people's experiences. So, when I hear a lot of drum beating, sometimes I do get nauseated psychologically. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to go over to the comments really quickly. Have you seen the Dune movie, Michael or Halcyon?
I've seen the Dune movie. It's part 1. It's part of it.
Right, that's right. It's because in the book Dune is split into 3 sections. You got Dune, then Messiah, then the Prophet, or maybe it's the Prophet and then Messiah. I can't remember, but it's those 3 books make up the first book. And
Right.
so I thought they were very clever in just covering the Dune with the first section of it for the
Right.
first movie. That's the way it really ought to be done. And there, we discussed this before on the show, but I mean, like, everything that they did include in the movie, I thought was super well done. It's just that there's so many things in the book that you can't include in a movie. And I don't really know how you would include it. Like, the super close facial, when the Bene Gesserits are reading people's faces and stuff, and it's really hard to express that in a movie,
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things that just don't translate from book. Like, even if you take like the A Song of Ice and Fire books, like, those are written from perspective chapters, each one. Like, there's no truth. If you put it on film, you're trying to like show what happened. Like, everything you're reading, it's not. It's like if you read this person's chapter and then this other, they contradict one another, even if they're at the same event, because it's a Rashomon
different person's
effect.
perspectives.
Yeah, it's a Rashomon
Well,
effect. So
basically,
putting it
you're
on
saying the book
film,
is written from the inside of the head outwards, but you can only show a movie from the outside of the head inwards.
right? And so when I tell people, like, it's only like the Game of Thrones show and some of these other shows are not really adapting that. They don't have any interest in it, and it really leaves all the mythology and the mysteries out. It's very surface storytelling. It's very basic, and it only partially. They take a few like book covers and then they throw a story with name only, and I'm like, that's not an adaptation. That's inspired by. Like, that's good that they're doing that kind of fan fiction. If you like it, it's not for me. Cheers to those people. But if you like that crap, but I firmly thought it was pig shit. So, not my kind of my flavor. I like the books.
Well, I mean, you're a bookworm, aren't you, Galen? I mean, that's a fair statement, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I spent like this week going over the concepts of having to look at the religious concepts of stuff, like with this imperishable flame, with everything that goes back into Tolkien, and then trying to understand the stuff where what Martin is talking about in A Song of Ice and Fire with his founding concepts, and then looking back at the medieval inspired stories in Narnia, and then thinking about other stories which in Norse myths. And I was like, I'm trying to get back in these concepts. Most people don't get back into the foundations of language and intentionality, but I'm good at that. So I went back through all that shit. So, I do make a commentary. I can be informed. I read all this shit so you don't have to. So,
Well, I almost think of it like that, Galen. When it comes to philosophy, I definitely think like that. I think Galen can explain this to me if I have a question.
I can really go into philosophy all day, whether it's, different periods, because I've read the philosophies from different countries, the histories of the philosophies of different countries. You try to get into their literature to understand their point of view. You want to understand something outside of yourself. But most people, they take their culture and then look at it from the outside as if it's the inside, and that's not the case. But there's a lot of cultural bias in all these discussions. So,
Sure, to an event, to a point that's inevitable, you know.
And by the way, I gotta say this, it's been eating at me. You know, we mentioned the Lord of the Rings movie. Like, okay, in that whole Legendarium, I have several favorite characters. Okay, I love Morgoth of all people. I love Morgoth. I think he is an interesting, integral character that kind of balances out Tom Bombadil. And then there's Glorfindel, who's this legendary fighter who they did, and they pretty much didn't have any of that. And then they just kind of made Sam Wise like they don't really like most people don't see that he's the hero. It just drives me nuts. But you know, they think Frodo's the greatest hero ever, but I personally don't. So I can't stand Gandalf either. So there you go. I hate Gandalf. I like to throw him in the lava.
Wow.
Fuck that dude.
I
Fuck
disapprove
Frodo
of
too. I would throw Frodo in the fire too. Yeah, in there. You're out
Your
of here, buddy.
views shall not pass.
Yeah. And screw Gandalf for what he faces the Balrog, and then he's talking about the flame itself. Like that to me is heresy to what that is. So I'm like, yeah, screw you, you arrogant bastard. I know he's leading a war, but he can't see other people's perspectives. That's why he's so, you know, dismissive of other people's perspectives. He's fallen into a lot of that warmongering psychology, but you know.
Yeah, a comment here from the Green Machine. When you read the books, it's easier to see Sam as the hero.
Well, that's because Peter Jackson dismissed Sam. He said he tried to make it more about his Frodo and Gandalf as possible. You know, he bragged about that.
Yeah, but I don't think that Sam, for me, when I watch those movies, I don't feel like Sam was dismissed at all, because it's quite clear, to the point of almost being homoerotic, how much Frodo depended on Sam. He could not have done it without Sam. They clearly loved each other, you know, in a fraternal way, you know, and it was, I felt like Sam was indispensable to Frodo, and therefore, you know, Frodo's not really a hero so much because he couldn't have done it without Sam.
Well,
I don't know.
I'll say this, that I feel Sam did it. The hell with Frodo. He's a rat bastard. He turned and put the ring on. Screw him. But I don't want to cut Michael out. We keep venturing away. What is his cup of life in storytelling and anything else? What has he been enjoying himself of? What do you want to? Not that already what you've already, you know. What do you enjoy? Well, what do you watch? What do you read?
Okay, so very strange things. I've watched every episode of Law and Order SVU. 24 seasons of it. It started while I was in my bachelor's program, and I could not talk to the other people in my psychology major classes without watching that show, because all of the girls wanted to be Olivia Benson. They should have been in a criminal justice program to become a cop, but it's like they wanted to be her plus the psychological profiler on the show, and they just wanted to get those sex offenders. And so, yeah, I've watched every episode of that. Yeah, I like to binge watch things, and I like to, I'll say, almost wait till a show is over before I start watching it, because I don't want to watch a show that only has 2 seasons and doesn't end properly because it got canceled before the writers could give it a proper send-off. The last thing that I watched in that vein was called The Following with Kevin Bacon. It made it to season 3 and then got canceled. And it was canceled on a cliffhanger. And I got really pissed off about that.
I can appreciate getting annoyed when they cancel on a cliffhanger, or canceling it all when you love a show is hard, man. But I mean, on a cliffhanger is particularly harsh.
They had a television serial called Hannibal, that was based on
I remember that.
Silence of the Lambs and all that. And they also didn't give that a proper send off because it got canceled.
Right.
And so I like to watch things that run their course, and the story that was intended to be told is told.
Well, I mean, I don't even know what gets the show canceled anymore, considering how much crap there is out there, right? But I mean, like, I guess it has something to do with audience share, like it always did. But I'm not so sure. Do you all remember a show that came out in the mid '70s? I believe the first season was '76. It was called Soap.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Okay,
Billy
that
Crystal.
show went for
Yeah.
1.5 seasons and got canceled in the middle of this. Well, I guess 10 episodes in, or eight or 9 episodes into the second season. And when they realized that they were getting canceled, they tried to pull some story elements forward so they could make some sense of it, but they still had to cancel it without leaving a whole bunch of unresolved questions. And also, because they knew they were getting canceled, they also just torpedoed themselves basically by writing it in a very farcical way because they knew they didn't have to keep going. Do you know what I mean? Which is too bad because I thought it was one of the funniest comedies. The first season was great. And then I guess it just didn't get the kind of attention. And back then, Billy Crystal was, I think he was the first openly gay character on American TV on that show. Because that was '76. Yeah, that first season came out. But when shows get canceled, it can be pretty harsh if you're actually a fan. But not if the show's ran already for a long, long time, like Buffy or Cheers or something like that. You know?
Yeah. I'll say I watched The Sopranos all the way through after it was canceled, or after it ended, and it was very controversial ending. People were talking about it, and in watching each episode, I could tell that there was part of that show was ripped from the headlines, just like Law and Order, where there were things going on in the real world that they were trying to make elements of the show.
Right.
And people watching that show now are not going to get what they were trying to get at with the subtle messages they were putting out there. And I could see what they were getting at when I watched it. And it's been a couple years since I watched that whole series, and I hope that I would be able to. But there's even now 20 years on in Law and Order, like there are episodes where people wouldn't get where they drew their inspiration from.
Right, sure. Well, like this reminds me of a conversation, like the second iteration, the more modern, the 21st century iteration of Battlestar Galactica. I didn't watch that contemporaneously when it was on TV because I was in the UK and it was an American show. So I had to wait for it all to be over and I could watch it on DVDs, right? So I watched it, I don't know, sometime after it was live on TV. So I did not appreciate that they were doing with that show what you were talking about, Michael. Like in the whole third season of Battlestar Galactica, they're under military occupation and the humans are fighting a resistance. And basically that was happening while we were occupying Iraq, in terms of when it was contemporaneous. But I didn't know that. So when I was watching a lot of that stuff, I wasn't really necessarily making those types of connections when I was watching it. So I wonder if I watched it contemporaneously when it was on TV, if I would have found the show more or less annoying because of, the allegories they were deliberately putting into the show.
Well, Paul, there are people who now would watch Star Wars and not get the Empire's uniforms on the ships look almost like straight from the closet of a Nazi.
Right.
They wouldn't get that because they don't have that reference.
Well, their cultural reference is Star Wars. Think about that. I mean,
Yeah.
Star Wars is an established part of American culture.
When I look at Doctor Who, I think the Daleks are the Nazis. I think the Cybermen sometimes are the Nazis. At different times, they use a different
Sure.
enemy, but still, I can see elements of Nazis coming out of both.
Yeah. You know, we've been so inundated with the Nazi stuff over the past, well, since the invention of the internet. What's the law that when you bring up
Godwin's
Hitler, you
law.
lose?
Godwin's law.
Godwin's law.
Yeah.
That's thank you very much. But do y'all remember this movie back in the 70s? It's called Wizards. It's an animated movie.
Yeah.
And it basically takes place a million years in the future. And the Earth is populated by wizards and fairies, as well as lots of mutants, because we nuked ourselves, you know, a million years ago, you know, which is now. And so the world is coming back, and there's, you know, magic in the world and whatever. And in order to enslave and terrify the bad guy in the movie, in order to enslave and terrify his followers, he shows like film footage that he found of the Nazis marching and stuff, and having their the famous rally was, I can't remember what rally it is, but it's a famous rally Hitler gave a speech to, where there's like literally thousands and thousands of Nazis all doing Sieg Heil and all that. And now if you showed that, people wouldn't consider it to be terrifying, because we have the Nazis of World War II are no longer in popular consciousness as what they were to the people who had some kind of more tangible experience of that period of time. Do you know what I mean? It's all iconography now to the generations, because
Well, if you look at how people who actually, there's a difference between people who were post World War II and people who actually experienced war, how they would shoot movies and about Nazism. Like, go look at like, you take a movie like from Sam Peckinpah. You know, he could do a movie, and he even did it with Germans, but it was like Cross of Iron. But if you really want to see one of a depiction of Nazis, is like Sam Fuller's The Big Red One. Like, you go look at movies by him. I mean, he did Verboten. He did a bunch of ones that are like post of looking and trying to understand the apocalyptic nature of World War II. I mean, he was, as a soldier, he was also known as a journalist and filmmaker. So when he liberated, was part of a liberation of a death camp, they asked him to be the one that first filmed a lot of that went out in the world. So you're getting this perspective of a guy when it was broken into and what they were seeing,
right,
and what these other people are seeing today, you know, and how they view it as an extremely different way from what, like, say, Sam Fuller saw. And by the way, that movie with Mark Hamill and Lee Marvin, it's an excellent movie if you can go watch it, but watch only the regular cut. There's some post-director's cut where they try to repatch the movie together, but it doesn't work. But that's with Mark Hamill. And it's like Quentin Tarantino says he has to look at, you know, real evil in the world, not symbolic evil as Darth Vader, as Mark Hamill's character, who's like this one guy who can't shoot, can't do anything, and he has to go in there, and he finally sees the death camps, and it breaks him. It breaks the soldier. It doesn't make him like, I'm the tough guy, John Wayne. You know, it's so horrific to see it. What you're seeing, bones and people, and then these children who are malnourished.
What's the name of that movie?
The Big Red One.
Okay, The Big Red One. I might look into that. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, and to some degree, unfortunately, in a way, it's unfortunate. I understand why it happens, but I mean, because you can't offend. Hollywood directors can't offend Nazis, right? So you can throw anything at the image of a Nazi and get away with it, because no one's going to argue in favor of the Nazi on the screen. So, like, for example, in some of the Raiders of the Lost Ark, or Harrison Ford, what do you call it? Indiana Jones movies. That's the one I'm looking for. You know, the Nazis are like, they'll shoot their own people just because they're, you know, in the way or whatever. Do you know, I mean, and as much as I'm sure Nazis are awful, I don't really know how well you can maintain discipline amongst your people if you go around capping everybody who gets in your way or whatever. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that over sensationalizes the violence, and also by doing that, kind of diminishes the true horror of the inhumanity of what the truth is. You know, I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Well, like Kubrick, he wanted to make a one on the atrocities and the death camps and everything of World War II, and he found that he just couldn't get it right. But I mean, there are certain books that do justice to it. Like if you go read Moss, the Art Spiegelman's graphic novel 2-book set, it's an excellent story about what he went through, what his family went through, everything that happened. It's a Pulitzer Prize winning graphic novel, but it's excellent. I think we can relate to what people went through if we can open ourselves to their experiences, and those are vital books to get, like the ones that he did.
Well, I think when it comes to stuff like understanding the Nazis and World War II is in a broader sense as well, but definitely about the Nazis. I mean, documentaries are really the only real thing to really get you there. When you watch the documentary about when they first discovered Auschwitz and just the things that were filmed when they're first going in there, they're very famous scenes now, but I mean, like, bulldozers throwing bodies into the massive pit and everything. And I when you watch that and it's real, that's the thing. It's not special effects. And you watch that, and because it's real, the true inhumanity of it is, I think, that much more stark. I think because we're conditioned from a young age to understand that movies aren't real. And so, I mean, I could never watch the actual violence I watched, they say, for example, in Kill Bill, which I love that movie. But if I saw someone on a murdering rampage with a sword like that, I'd be horrified and traumatized for the rest of my life. Right? So there's something,
I don't know. I mean,
I was just going to say something about suspending disbelief just enough seems to make violence more tolerable, at least for me.
I mean, I've seen stuff way worse than in real life than like what they show in Kill Bill. So, I mean, I would say that, yeah, it can have an effect on you, but you just have to come to an understanding with it. With anything, it's not like you get over it. You just have to. It's like anything; you have to come to an understanding with it. You gotta close the distance on it.
Well, I agree with that as far as gore is concerned. I mean, I used to be a volunteer fireman, and I've seen things that'll never get out of my head. But as you just say, you come to terms with it. It's just, you have to. You don't have a choice, right? But there's something about violence is different than I used to report to a lot of car accidents, is where I've seen most of the gore I've seen in my life, and it's horrifying, right? But it's different when you're watching someone inflicted on someone else. And for some reason, speaking only for myself, suspending disbelief when I'm watching a movie is fine. I can look at the movie and take it as the entertainment is intended to be. However, if I knew I was watching someone really getting cut up like that, or take a Serbian film, if anything that happened in a Serbian film was actually real, you should vomit. I mean, you should run out of the cinema, right? And the only reason I could watch that stuff is because I know it's not real.
A really good book, I think, that deals with some of these things. And there's a book by Simon Baron Cohen called The Science of Evil, on empathy and the origins of cruelty. And it actually talks a lot about things that, not just like, concentration camps. It's kind of a generalized subject. You see these images. It talked about really cruelty that was experienced in them, which were really vicious, but it goes over it. But it's also, I think it's a very enlightening subject on, in human nature. There's a lot of good works, like books like by Aaron Beck, like Prisoners of Hate and all things like that. There's a lot of good material that we could reflect on these issues on. I think that there is a lot of violence in this world. We see the news and Twitter, and we see what's going on, and we read about Yemen, we read about problems around the world and these different genocides or just war. It's like, these are real problems, really big. And then people don't differentiate very well between symbolic evil and actual acts of violence. So people don't get how we lend ourselves to these things with our groupthink and tribalism and how we're all a part of one another. I think people miss that.
Right. Well, there's this famous experiment, the Stanford experiment as well, which basically uh, demonstrates how people, all you need is someone in a position of authority to tell you it's okay to do this horrible thing that you're thinking you're not supposed to do. And a disturbingly large minority of people will definitely do it just because someone in authority tell them, don't worry, I'll take responsibility.
I mean, that gets where they mentioned earlier the Adolf Eichmann trial. I mean, Hannah Arendt wrote about the banality of evil right there, and looking what people would do under the auspices, like, oh, I was following an order. I was just doing this. I'm just moving paperwork and stamping it. It's like, it's a lot more than that. It's little things. But, earlier Raven had said that, like, I think differently or on another way. I always tried to think differently on other ways and bring different subjects out. But I'm pretty very anti-nationalism or groupthink, and I know I'm not trying to buck anyone here. I understand people have their own interest, and that's fair. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just a person who pushes myself outside of that, political spectrum of left or right.
You don't believe in the dichotomy.
It's just a fallacy. Raven said earlier, it's like, well, well, if you want to be caught up in that's fine. That's not my thing. And the lesser of two evils, it's like, well, it's still evil, and I don't have to partake in that. If anybody else wants to, cheers, go do it. You're not dragging me into it.
Fair enough. Listen, friends, I want to end the show. It's getting to be 2 hours, pretty close to anyway, and I've got to go tend to my things, and I want to talk to you all afterwards as well before we finally split. So I would like to say thank you to everybody in the comment section for being well behaved. I think we've lost all of our trolls, which is kind of cool. What were you going to say, Michael?
Green Machine counts as a troll.
Green Machine does not count as a troll.
I count him as a troll.
Green Machine is one of my longest viewers ever.
You know what?
Of all the people that watch these videos, Green Machine's been watching my channel since 2009.
I am confident in Green Machine's ability to troll people.
Look, all I got to do is go retweet this, and which I don't. It's nothing against it. Me and you have actually argued before ugly over how to social network, and but I don't actually do it. And the reason is I don't want to bring any of the riffraff that, trash that might come in. So I just am like, I'll just come here and talk. Hands clean.
Yeah, right. Fair enough.
But
okay.
Well, I could bring viewers. You want me to go get 100 viewers? I'll get them. But you're going to bring some dog shit with it too. And
I'm not afraid of that at all. But I mean, I
don't want the dog shit. You can have it.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, when I changed from when I basically made the rule that I don't want shows to ever go longer than 3 hours, but I'd like to keep them around 2 hours, really. Back then, I also, at the same time, I unblocked almost everybody who had been blocked from this channel, because I don't really believe in blocking very much. And I wasn't the one who blocked them. So everybody got unblocked. But of course, because they had been blocked, most of them probably don't realize they're unblocked. So, yeah. Yeah. But I'm not a big blocker. And I don't, back when Blog TV was a thing, I mean, I was kind of well known for the fact that I didn't kick my trolls out. I would basically only kick the extreme racists out, and everybody else I would toy with like a cat playing with a mouse. You know what I mean? I mean, my attitude is, if you think you control me, then I control you back, but you also don't want to let someone dominate the conversation from the comment section,
You were always very fair.
Say that again, please.
You were always quite fair.
Well, I guess. Thank you. That's a compliment for sure. Anyways, so listen, we're going to wrap up the show, and I'll see everybody next week, hopefully. And next time I'll make sure to give everybody better advance notice. This time was a bit late. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Peace and joy, everybody. Bye-bye.